oil changed. That's leaking. There it goes. All right. Stay there. I'm going to go over for you the tools that I think that you should have if you're going to do basic mechanics work. You know, I service my own cars, oil changes, minor repairs, and even some pretty in-depth repairs, and I'll show you kind of what you need for that and what I recommend for those tools and those basic service kits. So I'm going to show you my kind of automotive toolbox. The stuff back here, you know, there's some stuff that crosses over, but a lot of that is more like kind of home repair stuff. You have your staplers and levels and squares and stuff like that. You know, I have some wrenches up there just for overflow because I don't really have a good spot for them. But so some of those will cross over into the mechanic side of things. But if you're going to be working on your own cars, tractors, lawnmower equipment, you know, power tools and stuff like that, you're going to need some of these basic tools. You won't need exactly the ones that I have. I have certain preferences to things that I like. Mainly, some of it's for nostalgia, some of it's because I've used it before in the past, and some of it's just because I like to own it and, you know, have kind of heirloom quality stuff. But I'll kind of give you some options and stuff like that that you can you know, switch up however you need it. So I'm going to just get started here, and it should be kind of a fun video. Okay, so one of the first things you're going to need are a set of screwdrivers. I have these right here. So the set that I chose, I have it for a couple of different reasons, but these are expensive. These are Mac, I think they call them a comfort grip handle. They're the old style. They're the classic handled, classic plastic, hard handled screwdrivers. And, you know, I have some stuff right here. You always look at garage sales and things. I found these at garage sales. These are awesome for digging out like cotter keys and snaps and clips and different things like that you can dig into. It's kind of like almost a pick, but it's more of a cotter key tool. I got several different versions of that at garage sales for next to nothing. And then I also found a long-handled Phillips cabinet screwdriver. Look at that thing. It's like, I think it's like 20 or 18 inches long. What does it say? Number one. Yeah, it's an 18-inch long screwdriver, so that's kind of a rare find right there. I'd like to find the flathead version of that. Paid next to nothing for that, but I bought these new, and the reason is because back when I used to work as a mechanic on aircraft, I had this set, and so years ago I got everything stolen. I think I might have mentioned that, but this was the set that I had. I think one of them, I think this one was the only one that made it out not stolen, and then I broke it. And so you say, well, if you broke it, why are they so good? There's a very hard heat treat on the end of these, and you're going to get that with any of the high-end, the premium screwdrivers that are out there. These have a nice place to put your wrench. You can crank on them. You can just put a lot of down pressure on there and just crank them out. And believe it or not, that works really well. That's actually how I broke the previous version of the screwdriver. And of course, being a Mac and lifetime warranty, they just gave me a new one. But the point is I put so much pressure on that, and it just literally broke the tip off of that. So the point is these are really hard and they don't deform. You know, a lot of screwdrivers that you'll find will start wearing out and deforming right here. And I'll show you that, what I mean by that in a second. But I found these to be a really good quality. I don't mind this grip. Some people prefer the rubberized grip. I just like the fact that I can wash it off, wipe it off real quick. And, you know, these don't have a lot of wear and tear on them because, frankly, they're not that old. I replaced them not too long ago just because I got tired of dealing with, you know, kind of junky screwdrivers. But some people don't like those. Some people prefer, you know, the grippy, you know, the dual, you know, textured ones with the rubberized handles and the, you know, there's so many different kinds. Looks like that's got some wear on it. But you know, you can see there is a little bit of wear on these, and I do use them quite a bit. You know, just around, you know, doing automotive stuff, and there's always a need for them, for these things. So, you know, get a good pair, get a good set if you can afford it. If not, you know, there's plenty of options. You know, and I'll show you some of the other ones in a second. But I prefer these just because they don't the blades on these are so sharp and they're so nice that you can really get in and do some detail work. And they seem to bite into most screws. I'm not an expert on, you know, different styles of screw heads, but these seem to do a really good job for most things. And this size, you know, this kit seems to cover pretty much everything, you know, for around the house to automotive. But these all stay in the automotive toolbox, and I don't ever move them from there. So they're kind of not really meant for just home use. So I keep those separate. But I've been pretty pleased with those. Of course, the second thing, well, whatever's, all these are pretty much equal if you're going to do any sort of service work on your car. I don't have a lot of ratchets, but the ones that I have, I know I can do most things with. I'd still like to add a non-flex head version. Back before I got everything stolen, I had about this length of snap-on ratchet with a solid head on it, just like this. And honestly, it was my go-to ratchet. This is kind of slowly becoming that go-to ratchet. Though there's some times where you don't really want to have that thing flopping around. I've already been in some really tight binds with this thing, working on the old BMW, because they just have a lot of weird little things that you have to get at. But you know, these have proven themselves over and over again. And of course, I like the new 80 tooth ratcheting system that these have. Of course, this is an old one that I had quite a while ago. I think this is a 36 tooth. Yeah, this is. But this, believe it or not, if you're going to get into ratchets, get yourself. Let's see, what would I say? If you're going to get a service kit for like say working on a car, I'd almost say get a 3/8 drive long handled ratchet, okay, like this, and then get yourself either a long or a short handled quarter drive. This is just the most handy, most handy ratchet that I have. And for taking apart most things on a car, just for doing service, taking off trim, getting to air filters and things like that you're going to do on a regular basis. This is really my go-to wrench for that, or a ratchet for that. These are awesome. These are probably the best you can get. You don't have to get snap-on. I personally just like the way they feel. I just always have, so I get them. And I've had this for probably 10 years now, and it's never let me down. I would like to get the longer handled version of this, just because I think it might come in handy for some other stuff. So, but really, this is kind of my go-to. This one, you know, it's nice to have, but you don't get a lot of leverage on it when you're dealing with stubborn bolts. But you know, when you do get them loose, it is nice to have a shorter one. And you can get out most spark plugs with this one right here, especially if you're working on, you know, things like lawnmowers and whatever. You don't need to buy a snap-on. Again, I prefer the 80 tooth ratchet, but you know, you don't have to go crazy on those. But get a good one. You know, don't get those cheap, junky ones with the dial on top. They're just going to make you upset. And you know, you can do work with them, but you know, if you're you know, spending some time working on your car and getting into some more in-depth stuff, you wanna be able to have something that's comfortable for those jobs, and because you're going to be using that a lot. And I did a review on this one. Still love it. Pretty awesome. The Williams. And again, if you don't want to pay the prices of Snap-on, get Williams. You know, you can go on Amazon. I've linked some of these things on my other video, and I'll put the links on this one. But go on there and get the Williams ratchets. You can buy them in chrome, and you know, they're about $50, you know, for these. And that's about what you'd expect to pay. U.S. made, super good quality, Snap-on internals. The durability of Snap-on with, you know, you're paying a quarter of the price. So that's a great option. Obviously you need sockets, so I have shallow and deep for, you know, your metric and standard, and then 1/4 inch all the way back here. Now that I'm working on this BMW a lot, I'm having to get into some of these hex style sockets. So I got some gear wrench ones, which seem to be pretty good quality. They seem to be all right. They come with a pretty nice tool rack for these with like a ball detent, which is actually pretty nice. So I probably won't use those a lot, but you know, when you need them, you need them. Deep quarter. So I got all the different sizes. Like I said, my 1/2 inch. I said my 1/2 inch ones are in a different box over here that I keep separate. And then, but really, I've done most of my work with 3/8 and quarter, mostly quarter drive, for doing you know, service work and maintenance work. And this is you know, pile of extra, that's a gear wrench swivel socket there. Those are handy to have. Just some overflows and duplicates that I've had over the years. And Torx, you know, I need to get a better set of Torx, but I have some, you know, some Harbor Freight Torx right here, which, you know, on the BMW they use a lot of Torx stuff, which is kind of strange, but that's just how it is. So some adapters, you need a lot of that kind of stuff. So I have one crow's foot in here. I don't know what I was using that on. I can't remember what I bought that for. Number 12, size 12 millimeter. Oh, strange. Anyways, that's basically what you're gonna need. Get a set of, you know, pretty much, you know, your deep shallow for both, and then you know, whatever drive you choose. Most people choose 3/8 and quarter, and then if you need something more stout, you're gonna go up to half. Once you get into 3/4 and 1-inch drive, that's out of my territory. So that gets into big stuff. Let's see, what else do we have here? What's in this drawer? Oh yeah, pliers, you know. What can I say? I mean, snap ring pliers, these, you know, don't chintz out on these things. You're going to think, oh, I'll go to Harbor Freight and get a set of these and they'll be fine. Until you have a snap ring somewhere, a C-clip, whatever you guys call it, that's real stubborn, and you think you can get at it with some cheap ones and they start falling apart on you or twisting out. Then I went right to the store and picked up, I don't know who makes these, they're made in the US, but this is a Napa brand. You know, usually when they're Napa, that means I needed them now and probably should have had them earlier, but get a good set of these. You won't regret that. And these go inside and outside. You can unscrew these and switch them for inside and outside diameter or action. And then actually, I don't know if these may be Harbor Freight, but these actually are really good in some cases for really tiny ones. They're just, I don't know who makes them. I think they're just a no-name whatever, but I have a set of those, some angled ones, and those have come in handy over the years, but don't expect to put a lot of pressure on them. They're not that durable. Good set of channel lock needle nose. Get a good set of needle nose. Enough said on that. That's just, you know, whatever. Some channel lock pliers. Typical stuff. A little bit expensive, but made in the US. Now, this is what you want. I've had these since the 90s, and I don't know if they make them anymore. I know they make ones that are similar. These are Knipex. I'm a big fan of the Knipex brand. I think that they're a good German tool maker, and these, you know, I don't use them a lot. I can tell you, I don't use them a lot. You can see some wear on them, but when you need these things, they're awesome, and I'll show you how those work in a minute. But they're small. You can get into tight spots with them, and these teeth on here just bite in like nobody's business. And what's cool about them is they fit around, you know, your standard nut or bolt. Whereas something like this, you know, this channel lock is more of a straightforward. It just kind of pinches down on something flat. See that? And these things have sort of a bolt shape. So, but if you clamp down on something like this, then you don't want to do damage to it. You're out of luck. They're going to damage just about everything. So these might be a little more gentle on something if you're just pulling it out. Some good cutters. I actually found these at a garage sale for like $2. Knipex. I mean, they're a $50 or $60 tool. So go to garage sales and you'll find some really cool stuff. I was able to clean them up, and they're good as new. They'll cut through nails and whatever. They're pretty awesome. When you need these things, you need them. Whatever, Craftsman. These are old Craftsman, USA made. Can you believe that? So, you know, these are invaluable, and especially, and you'd think they use them for like cutting wire and stuff, but I use them a lot, you know, on my BMW for pulling out like body clips. They have these weird little clips that you got to pull up, and if you're gentle, you can use plier. You can use these cutters, and you can kind of pry these things up. So those are very handy. Use them a lot, but you know, sometimes you have to get down into something and pick something out. That's nice to have. Speaking of pick something out, this is probably a little more in depth if you're, you know, getting into stuff, but get a nice pick set. Let me show you this real quick. Get some punches. You're gonna always need punches, some chisels for beating on stuff and cutting things off. But picks right here. I replaced some that were all messed up just the other day. And especially this 90-degree pick, this thing's great. So for picking out O-rings and getting things cleared off, you want a nice durable pick, but you don't want something that's too brittle. and something that bends. So these seem to be pretty durable, and I have never really broken one actually, and I've been pretty rough on them. This one's got a lot of wear. This is from the original. This is a tool that I did not get stolen. You can tell I used to use these a lot back in the day. They're all different colored and who knows what. But you know, I replaced the straight pick because that was lost long ago. But you know, these are nice for doing little you know, digging things out. You don't have to buy the Mac brand. It's just what I bought back in the day because the truck was there, and they always seem to be durable. But get a good set. You don't want them to be chipping off when you're in the middle of you know, working on, you know, for instance, on our old Ford Escape that I used to, you know, that has a terrible car, but I used to do, you know, maintenance on that thing, and I changed the plugs, and I changed some of the air intake seals. And to get to the plugs, you had to take the intake manifold off, and to get those seals out, you had to pick it out, and you just didn't want things falling in and getting broken. So get a good set of get a good pick set. You don't want something to break off and fall into the engine. That's a bad day when that happens. So you know, try to spend a little money on those. But I know there's some different brands that make them. You know, everybody makes them. Okay, so everybody needs, if you're going to do any work on anything, literally on anything. Look at this here. Let me lower that. So if you're going to do any work on any sort of mechanical thing, you're going to need a set of wrenches. Got one over here. I'm going to put it back in. So these are mine. These are the Craftsman Professional Series. Back when they made the actual Professional Series, USA made. I believe Armstrong made these for OEM these for Craftsman back in the day. I think it was Armstrong. I could be wrong. It wasn't Williams, but I think it was Armstrong. And I believe you can still buy these very similar wrenches from Armstrong. They're really expensive. And actually, since I've had these have gone up in value. So I don't really ever want to lose them or break them or whatever. But I'm glad I replaced them when I did. You know, these all got stolen. And I replaced them back when they were still US made. And that was probably 10, 12 years ago. So these have been really good. I would put these up there almost with the Snap-on ones. You know, they feel very similar. You know, they don't have the new, you know, what do you call those, bite, you know, teeth or whatever, alligator teeth or whatever that the Snap-on ones have. But you know, I haven't had any problems with them, and they've been really good. The set goes from, you know, 7mm. The metric set goes 7mm all the way. What am I doing? That's not 7mm. Yeah, 7mm up to 19. That's right, I have an overflow there. Up to 19. And then I bought some bigger ones to kind of complement that set, and I just bought those recently. So because I had a lot of use for those. But you know, the reality is you're gonna need metric, and you're gonna need imperial or standard or whatever. Most of the stuff now that I work on tends to be metric, but you know, you get the oddball. You know, standard size. So you know, I'd say anything even on the Ford is a lot of it's just metric. A lot of the stuff on the domestic cars is still metric. So, but sometimes, you know, there's a bigger one. For whatever reason, the standard size goes up a bit higher, but it goes up from, I think it's 1/4 inch, yeah, 1/4 inch to 1 inch. This is a good set. You know, this almost gets you what you need. You might need a few other bigger ones just to get some big bolts out, like for doing, you know, big suspension work. But for the most part, these have done me really well. I can't complain. And sometimes I find these old, you know, offset wrenches. I found this at a garage sale. This is who made this? Ford Steel, Select Steel. I don't know, some U.S. made thing. Who knows? But kind of a cool wrench. You know, the thing is, old wrenches and stuff, they all work the same. I mean, if they work, they work. If they're not broken, they're gonna work. So that's pretty cool. Got a set of, you know, little tiny wrenches. I actually kind of missed the ones I had before. These are combo, like carburetor wrench or something like that, but they're open end, and I prefer the combo ones like that. I think I mistakenly bought those, but these are nicer, as you can get. These work nice for doing like brake lines and stuff, cracking brake lines and doing, you know, bleeding brakes. So that's kind of nice. One thing I would like to get a better quality, and this is where quality does matter, I've noticed, is these, what do you call these? whatever. They're meant to go over, you know, like brake lines and stuff with, you know, to crack like say you're working on a master cylinder. I actually had to use this one on a master cylinder on the Toyota Sequoia, and it was terrible. The shop had replaced the master cylinder that was failed already, and it was like a brand new master cylinder. They tightened the fittings down too tight anyways, and so this thing started flaring out. And so it looks pretty ugly, but there's no way of getting that out, so I actually had to use this thing. And yeah, they look kind of nasty on one of them. The other ones I got out, but I had to break it loose with this. Kind of tore it up a little bit, but I mean, there was no other way to really do it. So these aren't very good quality, and this is where you do need a quality wrench, in my opinion. These flex too much, so I would spend, if I had to do it over again, I would spend a little bit more money on these. A flare nut wrench is what this is called. It's a flare wrench. So, you know, because if you don't get a good one, they just spread out, you know. So these are just junk. I don't even know who made these. Some money on those. These seem to work pretty good. You can get by with, you know, any number of brands, but if you're looking for US, there's, you know, I think Williams makes some. I know Armstrong makes some. There's another brand that I'll see if I can remember and link in, that makes a really, and I was looking at one today, a set. I got to remember the name, but I'll find it and I'll put that in the link. And the prices seem to be pretty reasonable. You can get them on Amazon. They're US made. You're going to spend about $150, $160 for a set though. But it's a whole lot cheaper than a Snap-on set at like, you know, $350 or $400. So I'll put that link in the description if I can find it. All right, so hanging on the wall here, I have my whole set of Craftsman screwdrivers. These are old school. I think they still make these in the US. But the question is, why would I replace them with these? Why would I use these for mechanics stuff? Well, the reason is, and I don't know if you could see this on camera, but remember I was talking about hardened steel. Let me show you. Hardened steel on these things. I'll show you. It's twisted, and probably due to me abusing it. As you can see, this thing's been, you know, all around, stir stick, pry bar, who knows what. But these bend pretty easily, in my experience. And this thing is pretty well, you know, contoured at this point. I might have to hammer that back if I can. But these simply won't, these Mac ones just won't do that. They'll break instead. So you would never want to use these as like a pry bar. These are kind of soft, and they're a lot cheaper. So, you know, I don't care about them as much. But these are kind of relegated to, you know, around the house use and things like that. They work okay. They're definitely, in my opinion, not as ergonomic. They're kind of uncomfortable, but I'm kind of nostalgic to them. You know, my dad has these kind, you know, in his collection, and I've always, you know, grown up around these, and they work fine. You know, they actually do work fine. But I'm looking at this Phillips, and I see a lot of deformation in the, you know, in the bit end here, and you know, but they're kind of nostalgic. They're old school acetate style, you know, been around for decades, kind of thing. So I'm kind of partial to those, just the way they look, and, you know, kind of nostalgic to that stuff. But they aren't, in my opinion, you know, they're not that great. But they would get you by, and they're not that expensive for a set of these. Like I said, I think they still make them in the US. I think you can probably get a whole set for, you know, 30, 40 bucks, something like that. Maybe even less if you look around. As you can see here, I have some overflow wrenches here. These are interesting because these are the newer ones. These are the made overseas ones. They don't say Craftsman Professional, but they match those. They match those pretty good. And actually, I got this set because I had a job to do, and they aren't terribly expensive. And I think I got, what is it, 5 or 6 of them in the set. So it completed, you know, those original ones went up to 20 mil. These go up to 21 to 24. So these are kind of the large size. And, you know, that kind of fills in the rest of the collection there. And, you know, I've actually used those a lot more than I thought I would. You know, looking up here, servicing your own stuff, you need oil filter wrenches. Okay, you know, you have to know your car and kind of know what you're after. Another tool you got to get once you get your you know, your filter wrenches and stuff like that. If you're going to be changing your own oil, you're going to need to find one of those. I got a couple of different sizes, and they seem to work for what I have. The other thing you want to get, and I don't use this all the time, okay, but I've had to use this before where I couldn't get, it was in a tight spot on one of our cars, and you know, I just could not get a bite on this thing, on that filter with one of these guys. And these are terrible, by the way. I probably should just get rid of that, but I don't know. They just slip and slide all over the filter. So you use this thing and you can actually turn, you put your ratchet in there and these arms bite into that filter and just, I mean, it'll mangle it all up, but man, it works really good. So yeah, get one of these as a backup, because you know, I've had to use these when things get really stuck. This will get you out of a bind. These are decent. You know, I don't use adjustable wrenches much, but you know, what's funny is I use these around the house for doing, like, you know, plumbing fittings and stuff, because you can always get in there and kind of tune things up. Get yourself some Allen keys right here, hex keys, you know, metric and standard. These are great. I mean, I've used the heck out of these, and you know, I have ones that have these you know, ball ends on them, and they can kind of pivot around, so that makes it nice for getting into tight spots. What else? You know, I just found one of these the other day. For a long time I was using one of those, you know, I have a compressor in here, and you know, that's the other thing, is when you start getting into this stuff, you'll want a compressor just so you can kind of clean things off and blow things out. There's always a use for one of those. But I found one of these at Harbor Freight. You know, I still have to kind of try it and see if it lasts, but it's basically like a paint gun. And you know, they give you a couple of different lengths of things on the, you know, of tubes on the end of this thing, and you can really get in tight with stuff. So that looks to be actually pretty high quality. It's, you know, cast aluminum, and you know, it feels pretty solid. So compared to the plastic ones that I was always using, which would break and leak all the time. Every now and then I do go get some stuff at Harbor Freight. I've had this for quite a few years. It's a rip-off of a Snap-on, same style of handle. As you can see, it's almost an exact duplicate. So, but this thing has actually gotten me out of quite a few binds. You know, if you have a stubborn lug nut, or what did I use this on a lot? I use this on to do the suspension on the Ford. I had to take off the ball joints, and I mean, this thing will just take them off with ease. Or brakes on the truck. I use this almost exclusively to get those nuts or those bolts started coming off, and man, that'll save the day right there. And you know, I don't use this a lot, but you know, when I need it, it's really nice to have. Just, you know, a couple feet, probably a 24-inch long breaker bar. I don't know if it's necessary to get this in, you know, super high end, because it's not used all the time, but man, when you need it, it's really handy to have. And it's even quite a bit longer than this guy right here, but I can't fit this in my toolbox when I'm at the, you know, if I'm going around the junkyard, I can't fit this one in my toolbox. It's just too big. So for working in the shop, I would recommend getting a good hammer. This is a ball peen hammer. I wouldn't even recommend going with what I did here. I just had to get this because I was there. Way too expensive for what this was. I think this was like 40 bucks. I don't know, 30 bucks, $40, but a little too much for this hammer. But it is comfortable, and it does absorb a lot of the impact with. The thing that I use most, and I've had this for years and years and years, and it's all beat up and mangled. This is a compo cast, and I believe they still make this. It's made by Stanley. I don't know if Stanley still makes that. I think they do. Compo Cast USA. It's a dead blow. So there's like shot in there, like lead shot. And I mean, this is awesome. This is probably one of the best hammers I've ever had, because it doesn't mar up surfaces, you know, metal surfaces and stuff. And when you're tapping loose, like say a water pump, you know, you need to get it off and break that seal. You're gonna need something like this, and these work really good. I spent quite a bit of time searching for a decent jack, service jack, that I could use to jack up, you know, anything from the front of my truck to, you know, the cars that we have. And you know, there's all this different opinions and stuff, and I had this old Harbor Freight jack that I had for years and years, and it honestly leaked from day one. It was terrible, and you know, I could kind of get it to work. And this is called a hybrid style. So this is aluminum. Has an aluminum chassis, and then steel components. Whereas a lot of the other ones, like this is a steel bar right here that you use. And I mean, it's very, I mean, you know, it doesn't take much to move it. And I can get this under the front of the car, even though it's so low. I can just move it a little bit and get it going. And I've had really good luck with this. I really recommend it so far. and it seems to be a really solid jack. It's heavy, it's about 75 pounds. So, you know, it's not a lightweight racing jack. It looks kind of like one, but there's a lot of steel components, and this is steel, you know, kind of stamped, and you know, there's some cast parts, but the frame is aluminum, so it makes it just a little bit lighter than one of those full steel ones, so you can kind of move it around. But it is not something you want to be carrying around too much. But I would highly recommend this jack. It's an HJ 3000, you know, 3 tons hybrid jack, and you can buy this same one, I think, on Amazon or something very, very similar to it. And I would highly recommend it. People gave Arcan a pretty good review, and you know, I don't see any reason to disagree with that. I think they do a really good job so far. That's my recommendation for a jack, and it comes with this nice thing right here, so it doesn't smack into the car when it comes up, and that's kind of handy. So it seems to do a lot of it. It's made working around the car is a lot nicer, because the other one I had was just so bad. Don't skimp out on the jack stands. Don't get junky ones, you know. I mean, I think they're all, I don't know where this is made, but it's pretty tough. You know, I have some smaller ones that I use on the BMW because it's just lower and everything, but you know, it's pretty much your life at stake, you know, when you're doing this kind of stuff. So get some decent jack stands. So if you're going to do any work on your own, and you're actually going to do some more serious stuff, what you'll probably be doing is going to the junkyard, you know, the auto wrecking yard. And I haven't gone very much in the last few years, but every now and then I'll go in there. When I had to fix the old Ford Escape, I had some motor mount issues, and I had to go get some parts in there. So it's important to get yourself a good, it doesn't have to be anything pretty. Actually, you don't want anything pretty. I got this at a garage sale, and I actually like it. I think it's kind of cool. My old neighbor sold it to me for a couple of bucks. And you know, these old Craftsman ones are fine. You know, you get your top box, your little top screwdriver box, and up here, and then down below I have sockets. But you know, I basically kind of know what I'm going to get, and then I load it up with, you know, what I'm going to go out and get that day. But get something that's kind of compact enough that you can, you know, you can haul it around. I have my overflow sockets in there, some big stuff that, you know, that I was using for the truck suspension. Here's some more extensions and everything, but I kind of keep my big stuff in here because I don't use them much. But you know, if I go to the junkyard, I would load this thing up with whatever I needed to do that day, whatever job I was going to go do, and it holds pretty much everything I need. Those are kind of my recommended service tools if you're getting into, you know, working on cars or working on your own, you know, even if it's just working on the lawnmower and, you know, draining the oil every now and then, or, you know, sharpening the blade. You're going to need some of these tools. And so, you know, there's a whole, you know, I have quite a few more hidden around here that I use for specialty stuff, but for changing spark plugs, air filters, oil, you know, a little bit trim pieces and interior pieces, replacing bulbs. Really, this kit that I showed you, kind of the, you know, the screwdriver kit, sockets, some wrenches. You know, you're really going to need some good. I would invest in kind of that core kit. You know, making sure that those tools are good. So you know, at least right off the bat. And then from there, you can kind of figure out your specific application. If you have, you know, foreign cars, like, you know, I have a little BMW, I'm going to need some Torx. Need to add in some, you know, some metric hex head stuff. Just knowing, you know, how that works. For the oil filter on that, I have to use a little bit different tool. I need to have some different sockets. So you can kind of branch out, but really I've used the same type of tools for years, and it's gotten me through about, you know, 95% of what I do. If there's anything really specialty, you can always go up to like a Napa or, you know, one of these auto parts stores and rent it. You know, sometimes I do that, but for the most part, it's nice to have that stuff as kind of your core set. So I hope this helps. You know, it's pretty basic, but you know, some guys want to get started in it, and you know, of course, I like to, you know, collect good tools, but you don't need to go top dollar on all of it. But you know, the stuff you use every day, a good ratchet, good wrenches, you know, spend the money up front. You're not going to regret. You definitely won't regret it later. You know, that's my philosophy on this, on tools, is if you can spend a little bit more. If you can afford it. If you can't, you can always go to Harbor Freight and get all these things for, you know, probably a couple $100, if that, and be done with it. But if it's something you think you're going to do a lot more of, and get more involved in the process, then spend the money up front. You won't regret it. You'll be able to replace them later, and just keep things going. So hope that helps. I'll see you guys on the next video.